All right, welcome everyone to the February 19th virtual meeting of the Economic Matters. Are we good? All right. Welcome everyone to the February 19th Economic Matters meeting. We are going to be virtual today due to the final day of a flu bug. Joining me today is Alderman Savage from the committee and Alderman Arnett as our guest. Welcome, sir. So before we begin, I am going to adjust the agenda slightly. We are going to move 03224 to the top of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
I will second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Up next, all in favor of approval of the minutes from our December 18th meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
I shall second. All in favor?
Aye.
Alrighty, so 03224 fire sprinkler system requirement clarification. We have some representatives here from the fire marshal's office who have been joining us for the past couple days with our answering any of our questions throughout the process. If they could please join us on camera. Mr. Zapta and Mr. Ruth. Thank you for joining us again. So, appreciate you all joining us again. Just kind of going throughout this process. I've been talking to building owners as they've gone through this process themselves, trying to learn a little bit more, and something that they have been very praising is the pre-op meetings that you guys offer. They've said that's been a very useful tool. One of the things that is coming up, though, as a major issue is the overall timeline that we're starting to see. Originally, we had offered this as when this legislation was initially proposed to sprinkler all the buildings on Main Street. There was an original proposal of doing it within a 10-year period, but that was shortened to 5 years. That may have been overly ambitious. So I want to put forward an amendment to expand that back to that original 10-year proposal. So for purposes here, I guess that would be 5 years. Are you members of the fire marshal's office in agreement with that timeline is a little more realistic?
No, the fire marshal's office agrees that is more realistic. Yes.
Okay. So if we could please have the law office draft that up to expand that deadline by another 5 years. And that is the only question that I have, because in interviews with building owners, just ambitiously, this process takes about 6 months if a building owner is very aggressively on the ball. And if they are just kind of slowly going along with the process and not following up actively with their planning and zoning department, not actively following up with the contractors, and the contractors are somewhat limited, it can take a year. And with the number of buildings that are still left to go, we're just not going to hit that deadline that we have currently set for ourselves. So expanding it further is going to be just realistically what we have to do. Alderman Savage, do you have any further questions for our fire marshal's office?
I do, although I think your amendment addresses it. But so my question would be, how many? And I think the fire marshal's office answered this last time, but I can't find the answer. How many residential units are on the affected streets that would be impacted by this legislation?
So residential units, there's two types of residential units. There are those that would sit on top of I'll say a business use group, a commercial use group, mercantile use group. We don't have that number, but we do have, I think it's only 2 or 3 that are total. I'm gonna say freestanding. They're townhouse style, but that are residential from floor to top, floor to roof.
Only 2, you said?
2 to 3, yeah.
2 to 3. Okay.
Yeah.
The reason I ask, and it sounds like I guess you've been treating mixed use buildings as commercial. Is that accurate?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So they've fallen under this, even the previous current language. but the folks who are potentially new, because the original language just says all commercial buildings, which is why I asked about residential, because this most likely or might be a surprise to them, and that's where I think, Mr. Chair, your amendment would help address the situation with the residential properties.
And then residential is a type of use within a commercial use group on Main Street and Francis Street. So the building department, when we're doing a building code analysis, we would look at that as a commercial building. And then the commercial building, that's not a terminology in the building code. We actually get different use groups within that. We call them business, mercantile. That's pretty much it for what you see on Main Street.
And so when a property has a mixed use as far as commercial and then residential above, when you have been telling them they have to comply with the sprinkler regulations, is that for the entire building or is it only for the commercial portion?
That's for the entire building, but we're encouraging people to get, not the business owners, not to necessarily discuss it with sprinkler contractors entirely, because there are options. If you can do a commercial style sprinkler system throughout the entire building, which is more expensive, but if you get an architect or a fire protection engineer involved, you can reduce that effort in the residential portion if you make other changes in your building design, like a fire rated separation between the uses. So there's options that can change your current state and or your future state. So we kind of want the business owners to know what their options are before they pursue, forging ahead with the sprinklers.
Okay. And for a typical building or perhaps typical residential, what would and I think you mentioned this, what's the average cost to make these improvements?
It's going to be on by all means, case by case. It depends what the business owner would opt to do. If they were doing residential on the top floor, it's going to be, as I say top floor, usually you have the second and third floors are going to be your residential. That's going to be significantly cheaper. I can't really put a price to it because it's with the historic nature of the buildings, it's difficult. But I venture to say the sprinkler cost alone, I'm not talking about the fire alarm or the architectural, might be $7 a square foot. That's just putting a snowball, putting a number out there.
Okay, and that's
one of our building owners said it's approximately closer to 10, but yeah, for sprinkling.
It's hard to put a number to it because it depends how they want to install their system. If they want to install it all exposed, that's going to be cheaper. If they're going to try to start tearing ceilings apart, it's going to cost more. Depends how they want to zone the building. If they want to get architectural involved, there's going to be different factors as well.
I'm just looking for an average ballpark so I can figure out. Is that the deputy city manager said that there's 300 some thousand in the sprinkler fund, I believe. And so I just want to get an idea of, and I think last time you said there are 30, 40 properties left that don't have sprinklers. Is that right?
There are 44 that do not have sprinklers, and there's 52 that do.
Okay, so that'd be that's why I'm asking for an average. Like, I mean, can you give me like a ballpark so I can at least try and get an idea if there's enough money in that fund right now or not?
About 300,000. That doesn't sound like enough to cover everybody for sure.
So I mean, you're talking like maybe 20,000, 50,000 on average for a building, or up or more than that.
No, it's upwards of 20,000. You're picking up fire alarm to monitor the sprinkler. You're bringing the water main into your building from the sidewalk. That's going to be upwards of $10,000. Your sprinkler system in and of itself may be, like you said, close to $10 a square foot, and that doesn't even factor in your any of the architectural modifications that might be necessary.
Okay. So for 44 properties, that's 880,000 at that average that we would need. And I think just for my colleagues, I think just to put that in your head, because if we're extending the deadline by 5 years, we might want to have some kind of target that we at least make sure the fund has something a bit closer to that amount over the course of the next few years. But that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So before we get into the rules and city government amendment, Ms. Reuter, do you think it's possible? We have this legislation is going to be on the agenda for third reader on Monday. Is it possible to get that amendment pushing back the deadline by another 5 years drafted and ready by our next council meeting?
Oh yeah, that'll be no problem.
Excellent. So, all right, in that case, let's get into, no need to vote on that amendment because we came up with it ourselves, but let's make a vote or dive into Amendment 1 out of the Rules Committee. Amendment 1 is to, instead of sprinkling all mixed-use commercial and residential buildings, it is to sprinkler all buildings, period, including the single-family residential. Rationale out of rules and city government was this does make things safer. I personally disagreed with it just due to it does add more continued pressure on the sprinkler fund, and it does add more buildings to sprinkler and additional costs. I'm going to put for a negative recommendation on this one myself, but Alderman Savage, do you have thoughts on this?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm certainly sympathetic to your concerns, but I think looking at the amendment, I think it simplifies the language. I don't think it really changes the intention of the original, because what's proposed in the legislation is it would apply to commercial, mixed use, and residential. Oh, I see. But it also includes other than a single family house.
Yeah, it would just be like if it's a house.
Yeah. Well. So what are your? Well, I mean, to your point, other points you've made as far as wanting to move away from single family houses, would this be a potential incentive to get them? I mean, I guess either way they're going to have to provide sprinklers, but would this inadvertently perpetuate single family housing by having them be exempted from this?
There's not really, I don't even really think there's detached single family homes in this area. I think they're all kind of connected row homes, but which our zoning code defines as single family attached. So it's like, they're not exactly like detached standalone dwellings. So again, there is a safety component to it that does make sense. Just my thought process, and it also adds like a lot more potential work and cost to things. Alderman Arnett was the primary leader on this amendment, and he does have thoughts. So Alderman Arnett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this sprinkler legislation goes way back, pretty much to the time when Alderwoman Finlayson and I joined the council. So it goes way back. And the notion at that time was a public safety notion, which was any sprinkling, no matter where it went, was good life safety practices. As you point out, Alderman Schaunemeyer, there's not that many houses, but they are townhouses, and getting them sprinkled, it seems you can stop the fire before it spreads from building to building since they're connected. And again, I think the sense was if we need to put more money in the fund, let's put more money in the fund, but let's stop fires wherever we can. And so that was the general sense of it. And I do admit it harkens back to when Sheila and I both served on the Public Safety Committee.
I'm going to go with Alderman Savage and then Ms. Ritter.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess my first question would be how many single family homes are there on the street? I think they said there were 4 residential buildings, but I don't know if that means multifamily or not. So does the fire marshal's office know how many are actual just single family houses?
We don't have an exact number, but it's 2 or 3 on Francis Street.
Okay, and those aren't multi-unit; they're all attached,
but they're not, and they could be two layers. They could be
Yeah.
stacked on top of each other, but we're viewing them as single residential single family homes.
Right, because the code does not specify, at least this section, attached or detached. My other concern, Mr. Chair, would be, I'd just think, again, I don't want to inadvertently incentivize the creation of more single-family houses down there. Somebody could theoretically buy a property that's multi-use, and convert it into single family, and they won't have to, just to avoid having to add sprinklers. They could potentially flip it if the zoning would allow, presumably. But
Point of information, if I may, if they're doing a conversion and it's over 50% of the value of the house, they have to sprinkle anyway.
Yeah.
So, we may be arguing over angels on the head of a pin here, but it really was our feeling way back when this started was anytime we can sprinkle something, it's better than not sprinkling it. And that is the pure and simple sentiment. We were not thinking about other things such as incenting buildings to remain single family or anything like that. It was, let's sprinkle anything we can.
yeah, and I can also see the other. I can also see your point, Mr. Chair. I mean, if they're historic buildings, we don't necessarily want to make it too much of a burden to continue to have those be in use. So in any case, I'm finished with my comments.
Ms. Renner?
Yes. This issue came up before. Assistant City Attorney Carrie Berger looked into it, and she deems that the amendment is legally insufficient. And that is because basically Bud and Chuck had check me on this one. But the city gets its authority to investigate sprinkler systems and such from the state. And the State Fire Prevention Code allows for the establishment of requirements, which is installing sprinklers for existing building. If the authority having jurisdiction determines that the existing situation, being no sprinklers, constitutes a hazard to the public welfare and safety as to require a correction. This is Carrie's writing. It says, she points out, however, the State Fire Prevention Code explicitly excludes single-family dwellings from the authorization. So basically, the state is saying that you can look into commercial property, but not single-family dwellings.
Even if it's single family attached?
I don't think there's that designation.
Yeah. Well, let's let the law office figure this one out, just not take a position. How about we save ourselves time on this one?
Well, I was about to second your motion, but
My motion is to take no position on Amendment 1.
oh, okay. Well, could we make a request to the law office to get that clarified and uploaded to Legistar?
Sure.
Thank you.
All right, so we're not going to. So my motion is to take no action on Amendment 1. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. So, do I have a favorable recommendation on 03224 with the Economic Matters Amendment to delay it by 5 years?
So moved.
I will second. All in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. 03224 passes out of Economic Matters with a favorable recommendation. All right. Up next, 01024 outdoor dining requirements in Annapolis. Alderman Arnett, welcome, sir. So I understand you have a couple of guests that want to join us to provide testimony.
I'm not sure. I think I saw one person say that he couldn't make it. Do we have anyone in the waiting room?
If we have anyone in the waiting room, I would like to have them
Yes.
join.
Sorry, yes, we do.
Okay, so here is what I will have them do, or here's how we'll have this go. I will have the guests present. They will have 3 minutes each. And then guests will join. They will have 3 minutes to present each. And then Alderman Arnett, you will present the legislation as written, and then we will dive into the amendments themselves. All right. So, who is our first member of the public that wishes to testify? Mr. Thomasine, please jump on camera.
Good evening, everybody.
Welcome, sir. So, do you see the
I see the
little
timer.
timer? All right.
I have a virtual gavel. I know you were looking for one of these.
All right, so Mr. Tomasini, you will have 3 minutes. Once you start speaking, please say your name and address for the record. And once you start, I'm going to give that. And I am a harsh chairman. Once the 3 minutes hits, you will be cut off.
Got it. I'll be brief. My name is Mike Tomasini. I reside at 212 Eastern Avenue in Eastport. Those of you who don't know me, I am a fierce advocate for our local small business community, and I am here tonight to testify on the outdoor dining legislation. Over the last several years, the businesses in Eastport, particularly the restaurant businesses in Eastport, have taken advantage of the outdoor dining program that was launched during COVID, and have done so to help them further their business goals. And I think that they've done a tremendous job at balancing community needs and the needs of their employees and their businesses. I think that we're kind of on the final steps here of finalizing an ordinance that's going to clearly outline the rules for them to continue to participate in this program. And it's going to give them the certainty that they need to continue to offer outdoor dining to their patrons. So I hope that you guys will support it. And I can't wait to hear the final city council vote on it. And that's my time.
Less than a minute. All right. 1 minute exactly. Thank you, sir. All right. Do we have any further members of the public that wish to testify? Mr. Franio, welcome, sir. Franio, if you could please take yourself off of mute and turn on your camera. On the internet, are you able to shoot him a quick text or something to let him know he's on?
Yep, I will do that.
Oh, there he is. His camera's on. Mr. Franio, if you could please take yourself off mute. You're on mute.
Dude, I'm pushing it.
Yep, you're good. All right, so, sir, if you could please read your name and address to the camera, you'll have 3 minutes to testify. If you can see a little timer in the corner, at the 3 minute mark, you will be cut off.
I will be very quick. It's Richard Franio, 29 Eastern Avenue, Annapolis. I just would support what Mike said. It's been a long time. Well, we've done this for 5 years. We've never had a complaint. We've done the same thing. We run a tight ship. I think all of us do. My peers do too. And getting this passed gives us certainty, which is so important to running a business. We're trying to hire people. We're trying to spend money on various things, and just knowing that we have this going forward rather than a year over year is a great thing for us. We've spent a lot of time, and Ross and all of us have spent a lot of time getting all of Eastport on the same page, and that's not easy. And I think we're there with 01024, especially as amended today by the Finance Committee, which Ross will fill you in on. I think that's it. What we would love to get tonight is a positive vote on 01024, so then it can go back to the Rules Committee next month and then hopefully be passed. So we just strongly support this, and it's been a long time, and I'm trying to get a lot of people on the same page, and we're there. So that is all I have. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Franyo. Do we have anyone else ready to join us from the public?
I don't see anybody on the participant list.
All
Mr.
righty.
Chair.
Excellent. Mr. Franyo, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay, so, all right, Alderman Arnett, if you could please present, present 01024.
Yes, so as the two previous speakers said, this is an attempt to make permanent outdoor dining. As we learned during the COVID experience, both the residents, the customers, and the restaurants like this and benefit from it. And we're presenting an ordinance that allows that to happen. It has, as its main feature, it allows restaurants to have outdoor dining during a certain portion of the year, and they will need to get a one-time only special exception, but after that, the special exception runs with the property. And today, there were several amendments that were heard by the Finance Committee. I was participant in that, and the chair of the Finance Committee allowed me to go through with commentary. The first amendment, which I think is on your agenda, you only have two of them, so I'm not sure how you want to handle all of the other amendments, or if you even want to handle them. But the first amendment is Savage Amendment number 1. It was deemed by the Office of Law that that was not legally sufficient, so that was rejected by the Finance Committee. Amendment number 2 has 4 parts to it. The Finance Committee accepted 2 of those parts. If you're looking at the amendments, or however you want to handle this, Mr. Chair, they agreed with part 2, which is seasonal parking lot dining requires a special exception, and that the special exception does not require annual review. And amendment portion number 4, which had to do with getting rid of duplicate language concerning noise devices. So it was on 2 pages, 16 and or 8 and 15, I'm sorry. And it was amendment clearing up the language. I can go on at this point and describe the other amendments for your edification, or I'll yield to however you want to proceed.
Okay. So I did see the Office of Law's memorandum, and I frankly just found the logic a bit circular on Amendment 1, where it just says they need a special exception because they need a special exception. So I respectfully disagree with their assessment. But
Let me break in and tell you that the city attorney came to the Finance Committee and embellished on that finding by Jessica. And we got much more deeply into 2126 and particularly subsection 5G, which is several lines that have to do with restaurants specifically in special exception. And the city attorney said this language comes from the state. It is authorized by the state, and we operate under their authority. And in his opinion, it's the ordinance, the amendment was not legally sufficient.
Alderman Savage.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I may have missed it, but I have not seen any memorandum from the law office regarding my amendment, so I can't speak to the validity or not as far as their assertion that it's legally insufficient. So I don't know how to proceed on that particular. But presumably, in any case, if somebody from the law office is on this line, if they could send that to me, or Alderman Arnett, if you have that.
I just forwarded it to you.
Okay.
Do have it in hard copy. Let me see if
Cynthia
I
has her
can.
hand up.
Ms. Ritter?
Yeah. Cynthia has her hand up.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not sure why that wasn't sent to me. It was my amendment.
Yeah, I have it
That's
in
a bit-
hard copy, so I can't answer to that.
I can give you an overview of the opinion.
Well, oh wait, so before you do that, Mr. Chair, we're kind of out of order, I think. Oh, wait, never mind. I guess this is the First Amendment. Yeah, never mind.
I think we just dive into the amendments
Okay.
themselves.
Okay, so the reasoning behind the legal insufficiency designation is that the amendment would eliminate the special exception requirement for restaurants. And it's a broader issue than the section that would be changed here. Basically, you'd be changing one part of the code that says no special exceptions needed for restaurants, but there are other parts of Title 21 that still require it. So you have a conflict within the code on how to handle special exceptions by restaurants. So going to those other sections of the code go outside the scope of the legislation, and that's what makes it legally insufficient. And it's suggested that if that's the direction you want to go, the better way to do it would be to have separate legislation dealing with that particular issue.
All right. Well, Mr. Chair, may I?
Yes.
So I need to digest this a bit more, but I guess if I understand the law of this, they're saying my proposed amendment would alter the special exception process in general for restaurants. And that is not what I intended. So I guess my question to them would be, because I don't think this should be separate legislation, because it's related directly to the process we set forward in this legislation for temporary outdoor dining. So my question would be, if there's a better way to do it, I mean, can we just state in this legislation somewhere that if a restaurant is seeking temporary outdoor dining per this section of code, they do not need to follow special exception process? Because that way it would still be in place for restaurants, period, who have to get special exceptions, but it would remove it for this type of use, the temporary use.
Is that a question to someone?
Ms. Ritter?
I think the issue is saying that they don't have to go through the special exception process is the issue, because that the requirement that restaurants do have to go through special exception is also in the uses subject to standards section. That's the table chart.
No, I'm not looking to change that, but again, my point all along with is that this is an extension of their underlying use. So I'm not trying to change that fact that it's associated with that use. I just want to change the fact that it's associated with this temporary.
It is a
Expansion.
change in their capacity.
I know, but that's not
what
the
makes it.
Alderman
That's-
Arnett, if you could please let Alderman Savage finish.
but that's not the point with it. The point is my thinking is removing it for this use, regardless of size, removing it for the temporary use. And that's why I'm hesitant to looking into expand it beyond 6 months. But the question now would be if there's a better way to do it. And I guess, sounds like we're not going to be able to work that out at this meeting, but Mr. Ruther, if you could give this some thought and let me know if there's a better way to do it, and we could circle up after the meeting, perhaps sometime.
And Alderman Arnett, I will let you finish your thought now, as you were responding to.
Well, I don't think there is a way to fix it, and I think the city attorney, but also I will say as the sponsor, I oppose it. So, I mean, this could be a stumbling block that may just have to come to some kind of vote at the council writ large.
I frankly find the special exception process entirely too incredibly burdensome, and I think it's set up to cause more hassle for this. There are some restaurants that even with the expanded capacity don't hit that 50 number in capacity expansion overall, that we're able to benefit greatly from outdoor dining, and the ones that were going over 50 with that increased capacity would have to go through that special exception process. Find the lofts is a bit frustratingly silly, but lawyers, man. Lawyers.
Well,
Anyway.
I guess could I move to postpone action on this amendment?
Yes.
Unless you were expecting us to be done with this legislation today.
I mean, I want to see the other amendments before we actually vote on the bill.
Okay.
So
So I guess that was the second.
I shall second.
Okay.
Amendment 2?
So Amendment 2 has, as I said earlier, 4 parts to it. The first part was accepted by the Finance Committee, but subsumed in the O'Neill Amendment number 3. And that first part was to allow outdoor dining January 1st through December 31st, and that the months need not be contiguous. So that was adopted under the O'Neill Amendment number 3, which we'll get to as you wish. The Amendment number 2 had the same problem of the Amendment number 2 is what the 2126 says, and so that is acceptable, and it is the intent of the legislation that once you get a special exception, the building has it, the business has it in perpetuity unless the owner of the business wants to amend it. So only the owner can change their special exception once granted, or can apply to change it. Amendment number 3 has the same issue. It is clear the code says that the special exceptions or these kinds of exceptions have to be done by the Board of Appeals, not by the Director of Planning and Zoning. So that was not approved by the Finance Committee. And then number 4 was clarifying language that was dealing with redundancies, and that was accepted by the Finance Committee.
Alderman Savage, do you have anything further to add on Amendment 2, your amendment?
To add on my Amendment 1?
Or Amendment 2?
Oh, did I have anything on Amendment 2? I mean, it sounds good to me. It just removes the month limitation, which I agree with, and changes it to the drafter determination, which I think will help make it a little easier.
Yeah, it was 3 that was legally insufficient.
So for 2A, I'm good with it. Would you accept a motion to recommend favorably Amendment 2?
I mean, the only problem I have is I still think 6 months is too short, but
Well, that's addressed with a different amendment anyway.
Yeah, sure. I shall second your motion. All in favor of Amendment 2? Aye.
Aye.
So, I do want to actually see the other amendments written down before we take further action on it, but, what was Amendment 3, Alderman, Arnett?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely prudent in wanting to see those, and there was quite a bit of debate. I'll just give a quick summary of them. Alderwoman O'Neill agreed to change the time from 3, 6, or 9 months that the restaurants could apply to, and we agreed with the January 1st through the December 31st time period. So it is that is consistent with the Savage Amendment 2. Amendment number 4 is one that does.
Hold on. Mr. Chair, could we take these one at a time?
Actually, Ms.
I thought you
Jackson,
wanted to see them in writing.
Ms. Jackson actually just emailed these amendments to us.
Yeah, they are
Okay.
posted now.
Posted on Legistar.
Yeah, they are on Legistar.
Excellent. Oh boy.
Yeah, all the amendments 1 through 5 are posted, but not with the changes that were approved earlier today by Finance.
All right, well, let's get into Amendment 3 then.
Okay.
Great.
Is this one changed at all?
Well, it's amended by the Finance Committee to do the same thing you had in your amendment number 2, which is to make the time period all year long in 3-month increments, which did not have to be continuous.
Page 7, line 27, insert 3, 6, or 9. Now, why is it 3, 6? My only question on this one is why is it 3, 6, or 9 and not just 9?
Because this gives the restaurants the choice. I know one restaurateur that doesn't want to do 9, but will choose 9 and do 7. In terms of it being incremented, I think if I understand your question, that is a carryover from the COVID resolution, and so it is certainly subject to debate by each of the committees.
I mean, like, if it just says 9 and they choose to not do the full 9, like, it would just cover. Like, if we say 9 months and someone wants to do 7, that's fine. If someone says 9 months and someone wants to do 2, it's fine. But yeah, Alderman Savage.
So I generally don't like. I don't think I'm going to support any that are over 6 months. And my rationale is, again, this is meant to be temporary. 9 months just gets a little too close to just making it permanent. And I'm afraid if we go to 9 months, then it's going to remove any incentive of them to go take the permanent path. And I'm going to try to finish that legislation tonight. But the sister legislation that would give a path to permanent outdoor dining, because personally that is what I would like to see, because I want these. You can't address permanent until you address the parking regulations, right? Because this temporary approval is essentially a temporary waiver. They can get a temporary waiver to the parking requirements just so they can have this temporary use. If parking is not needed for a certain period of time, I don't see why it's really needed the whole year. The path to permanence would again provide that path to getting a permanent removal of the parking requirements pending mitigation, certain mitigation requirements. And that again, that's the path I would prefer to see, because I would like to see permanent structures built, permanent conversions of parking lots instead of just these temporary uses. But if people want to stick with temporary, so be it. But I want to make sure that people just don't choose temporary because it's the easiest thing, and it's 9 months is essentially permanent. All right. So that's why, and that's also why I was trying to remove the special exception requirement on the temporary use. But if they went towards permanent and followed the path towards permanence, then they would have to comply with all the special exception, because that is, they could build a extension of their building. They could put a permanent pergola or some other permanent canopy, along with, converting the parking lots, some of the spaces to trees or stormwater management. But those additional amenities are not things we're going to be gaining through this temporary process. So it's a long way to say I just really think we should stick to 6 months.
I understand where you're coming from. I think 9 is better than 6, and I think 12 is better than 9. Push for 9 and then keep pushing for 12 is how I say it. But yes,
So you mean like 12 for temporary use?
I say 12 for full time. Make it full time, but 9 is better than 6 overall, and then but full time is even better than that. But I understand where you're coming from. Yes, Alderman Arnett.
So this is your committee. I will just note that if you want to do those things, you're way outside the purview of this ordinance. And actually, Alderman Schondemeyer, you're back to 0922. And those are things that this ordinance cannot go in and amend parking requirements in Title 21 as it's written. And I think you would find arguments from the Office of Law, once again, about legal sufficiency. We had a similar dialogue with Alderman Huntley today, and again, it was said that if that's a goal of the council, or at least of the alderperson, those are best resolved by going in and making wholesale changes elsewhere in Title 21. This legislation is meant to be a device to allow outdoor dining for part of the year, with the ability of the residents, which is part of Title 21-26, the input of the residents to do a special exception on a one-time only basis. I know, and in fact, Alderman Savage and I just had a dialogue in Environmental Matters about reviewing all of the parking requirements and maybe even accomplishing some good planning goals by virtue of doing that. I would just suggest this is not the document or the vehicle to do that. That's a much broader revision of zoning code.
Savage.
But just to clarify, I'm not looking to amend this legislation. I'm actually going to have separate legislation with a path towards permanence, because, like I said, but to my colleague from Ward 5, I don't understand why we would want to do anything that would allow for a completely unproductive use as a parking space to be able to perpetuate. And my concern is that this 9 months is going to act as essentially a loophole, instead of getting what is best for our community, which is having complete conversion of parking lots to something positive for the community, be it environmental amenities or permanent outdoor dining, or your housing, right? That they're always going to take the easiest way, and that easiest way is going to be the temporary use. 9 months, you're only talking a 3-month difference. So, there's no way people are going to they're going to have no incentive to move towards permanent. And, I think that's why I really think I want to get this other one introduced soon, because I think they need to be considered at the same time. But if people water this down too much, it ceases to be temporary, and I'm afraid we're going to shoot ourselves in the foot as we look to converting these parking lots to productive uses.
All right. So I don't think we will reach a conclusion on Amendment 3. So I think we should not take any action on that day. So I will make a motion for no action on Amendment 3.
All right, second.
All in favor of no action? Aye.
Aye.
Amendment 4. Amendment 4 allows restaurants in West Annapolis located on Severn Avenue from 4th into 5th Street to have outdoor dining from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. This one seems like a pretty no-brainer.
Well, you don't have the final version, apparently.
So if we
So-
don't have the final version of this,
Right. So,
Uh,
well, what you should be seeing is the real amendment is in blue, Severn Avenue from 4th to 5th Street. But that was amended to say, so that allows everybody operates from 7 to 10, except the exceptions under B, which is in the current code, small I, and I. And Alderwoman O'Neill wanted to add another exception, which would allow restaurants between Severn Avenue from 4th to 5th Street to operate from 7 to 10 Thursday through Friday, or through, I'm sorry, Sunday through Thursday, and then Friday, Saturday operate at 11 o'clock and on holidays. But there were some concerns about Alderwoman Finlayson about the area that was covered, and the Office of Law was going to redraft this amendment. I think you're really in an awkward position getting sent these things at the last minute, and I hope you'll give them the consideration they're due.
so if we're not getting these in their final form, I think we should postpone action on this legislation for today and then take it up at our next economic matters. Because I do want to see what these look like when they're like finally drafted and actually, get some time to digest them. Alderman Savage, would you be in agreement to that?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to postpone 1024 until the next meeting.
I shall second that. All in favor? Aye.
I
All
think
right.
you're very prudent.
All right, Alderman Arnett, thank you for joining us. You can stick around for 023, 24.
I
if you
wouldn't
want to.
leave this exciting adventure for anything.
I mean, look, this is an efficient meeting. It's only been an hour. And we're already on the last bill. 02324, big parking regulations. Hold on.
I don't have any questions on this.
Yeah, this one was just to basically expand out the expand away the towing regulations so that we could take abandoned vehicles and oversized vehicles farther away from the city, which was currently kind of creating an issue for when we had abandoned trailers, abandoned vehicles, and oversized vehicles, which the lots within 1 mile of the city were just refusing to take. Helps us get rid of stuff that's clogging our streets, and I think it's a good bill. Any questions? No? Cool. Do I have a favorable recommendation?
So moved.
Second? All in favor? Aye. Excellent. Alrighty, so on to general discussion items. The members of our economic development team could not join us today, so unless we have anything else for the good of the order,
No, sir.
Seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I will second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you for joining us, everyone.